In 1984, the NBA held its first formal slam dunk contest. The competition hosted many of the greatest basketball players of all time. Legends of the game like Dr. J, Dominique Wilkins, Ralph Sampson, Clyde Drexler, and eventual winner Larry Nance. The 1985 contest featured many of the same names and included his airness himself, Michael Jordan, finishing as runner-up in his rookie season. But in 1986, something different happened. See, many of the names I mentioned earlier were giants of the sport, figuratively and literally. The 1984 winner, Larry Nance, stood at 6'10" when he won the contest, outdueling giants like the 7'4" Ralph Sampson and the 6'7" Dr. J. And in 1985, Dominique Wilkins won standing at 6'8". But the 1986 winner was just a rookie by the name of Spud Webb. And while Spud could dunk out of his mind, he's most known as being one of the shortest players in NBA history. At just 5 feet and 6 inches, Webb shocked the world and gave us one of the greatest slam dunk performances of all time. One of the few with 250 dunks in his final round. But even Webb's presence in the NBA was in and of itself an anomaly. See, the 1980s were known as the era of big men. But Webb would go on to play 12 seasons of NBA basketball at just 5'6" the entire time. In the years that would follow, a renaissance of short guards would be drafted across the league, all at 6 foot and shorter. Guards like Tim Hardaway, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, Mookie Blaylock, and Allen Iverson. Short guards were present all over the league, and some of the best players in the association at the time were the little guys. And yet, today, not a single guard under 6'2" has been drafted in the first round for the last 3 seasons. Not only that, not a single player under 6 feet tall is expected to make any NBA roster over the entire association in the 2024 season. So therein lies the question. Have small guards gone extinct in the NBA? Is the age of the short guard a thing of the past? In 10 years, will the league be full of 6'10" and taller Wembanyamas and Holmgren type builds dominating the league with no little guys at all? Well, let's take a look. When Spud Webb entered the league in 1986, the association was ruled by big men. Hall of Famers like Larry Legend, Hakeem the Dream, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar all set the pace for what the league looked like at the time. Teams preferred drafting players who were dominant in the paint, and physicality was the name of the game. Back then, three-point shooting, speed, quickness were mostly all an afterthought. And this was reflected in the way that the teams who held the #1 overall pick decided to make their draft choices. From 1980 until 1996, every single player taken with the #1 overall pick in the NBA draft was either a forward or a center, and they all stood 6'8" or taller. There was a clear focus guiding this era of the game, but things were changing. When Spud Webb was drafted in 1986, other short guards had already played in the league. Guys like Charlie Crist at 5'8" played for 7 seasons after being undrafted. And players like Tiny Archibald and Calvin Murphy had played for over a decade before he even entered the league. But Spud's success and prominence paved the way for a new generation, and a spark that would change the NBA forever. Most namely through the legend, Muggsy Bogues. Just 2 years after Webb's slam dunk tryout, Bogues would end up being drafted in the first round of 1987, and would be the shortest player to ever play in the NBA. And still to this day, no one's been shorter. The Washington Bullets drafted Muggsy just 1 year after drafting Manute Bol, the tallest player to ever play in the NBA. But Bogues was no gimme. In a league of giants, ask any legend to ever play alongside him or against him, and they'll say that he was a certified killer. Don't believe me? Listen yourself.
I used to call him a ghost. You see him one side and your business gone. He's so fast, you can lose focus of it, lose sight. Then when he has the ball, he's so little, goes right by him.
Bogues would end up as the Charlotte Hornets' #1 all-time leader in assists and steals, an undeniable legend of the game. And over the decade that followed Spud Webb's breakthrough, small guards would have a renaissance that we may never see again in our lifetimes. The number of small guards 6 foot and shorter grew to the point where we saw more than 25 small guards play in at least 5 NBA games during the 95-96 season. As the three-point shot became a more and more important part of NBA offenses, there remained a consistent number of small guards that carved their niche in the league. We can see how those numbers rose and remained pretty consistent for decades. But the true culmination of the small guard renaissance came in the 1996 NBA draft with the #1 overall selection, Allen Iverson. The answer to the question, Bubba Chuck, 757's own, Allen Iverson is the greatest small guard to ever play in the NBA, bar none. First ballot Hall of Famer in 2016, Allen Iverson was a problem for the entire league from the moment he stepped foot on the court. As polarizing as he was unguardable, AI showed that not only can small guards play in the league, following in the footsteps of the great Spud Webb, Muggsy Bogues, and the like, but they could also dominate. Over the course of his career, AI would go on to be the Rookie of the Year, 7-time All-NBA player, 4-time scoring champion, and the 2001 NBA MVP. The shortest MVP in NBA history, the pinnacle of the NBA small guard. Allen Iverson will represent the flourishing heights of the NBA's breakdowns. For the almost 20 years after AI won the MVP, small guards maintained a pretty consistent presence in the association. Players like Chris Paul, Mike Conley, Nate Robinson, and Isaiah Thomas all carved out their niche and built sustainable careers. Over the early 2000s and 2010s, we see that the number of three-point field goals attempted increased steadily each year. These small guards were able to control pace and space the floor with the three ball better than their extra-large counterparts. And AI was the prime example of this, able to beat any defender off the dribble or knock down a wide-open shot if he left them open. But he would also see firsthand the inevitable decline of the NBA small guard. You see, near the twilight of AI's career, he would move on from the Philadelphia 76ers, leaving as a former MVP, legend of the game, and icon of the city, and take a supporting cast role with the Denver Nuggets. And the main man of that Denver Nuggets team was a future Hall of Famer by the name of Carmelo Anthony. Melo was one of the pioneers of the positionless basketball movement that would alter the game forever. A 6'7" forward that could bring the ball up the court, run set plays for offense, and pick apart any defender from the triple threat? Yeah, truly a problem. The positionless basketball movement spaces the floor and seeks to maximize mismatches with versatile players that can do it all. For decades, traditional basketball was siloed into the 5 positions, each with their own unique responsibilities. The point guard dribbles the ball up, the center stands underneath the basket, the shooting guard and small forward stand on the wings, and the 4 is somewhere in the middle of all of that. But positionless basketball seeks to flip expectations with versatile players that can disrupt the traditional flow of play. Funny enough, Carmelo was drafted right alongside a guy that's become the face of positionless basketball forever, and honestly might still be playing a decade from now.
LeBron James.
Drafted in 2003, LeBron James is the prototype for positionless basketball. Truly able to guard 1 through 5, can run an offense with or without the ball in his hands, and knock down the 3-ball dangerously if you give him a shot. LeBron is the revolutionary point forward, and his dominance has birthed a generation of players that can do it all. Guys like Kevin Durant, Ben Simmons, Luka Doncic, Jokic, Giannis, and a generation of other players looking up to the king to this day. As we analyze the drastic decline of small guards in the association today, I see 3 key reasons that could explain the why behind the what we see in the NBA today. Positionless basketball as we know it today, and mismatch ball has made small guards a liability on the court. A few key high-level draft misses have made teams hesitant when it comes to taking a chance on small guards. And international expansion has made the pool of available players much wider, reducing the chances for small guards to even get an opportunity to be successful in the league. First, we already touched briefly on positionless basketball and how that shifted the value of small guards in the NBA. But it's undeniable that a team with a 6'8" small forward that can grab rebounds on defense, initiate plays on offense, and then create their own 3-point shot really reduces the value of a 5'11" point guard. When that same undersized point guard then gets exploited on defense and is brought into the action every single play through high pick and rolls, the other team has a clear advantage, basically 5-on-4. And when we look at players like Chris Paul, due to their size and stature, in the playoffs we've seen them almost get played off the court over and over and over again. These sorts of position issues have led many teams to think twice about bringing in small guards, unless they can really overcome those deficiencies. And speaking of second guessing, we all know pro sports is a copycat business. Teams see the successes of one organization and as quickly as they can try to replicate that success through their own methods. As we think back to the splash impact of Spud Webb, an undrafted player in 1985, there's no question that his success then paved the way for a guy like Muggsy Bogues to be drafted 12th overall just 2 years later, which then paved the way for a guy like Kenny Anderson to be drafted number 2 overall in 1991, all eventually leading to AI getting drafted as the number 1 overall pick in 1996, the shortest number 1 overall draft pick of all time. Success begets success, and the NBA front offices are just as likely to follow trends as all of us. But in the same vein, failure begets failure, and NBA front offices are just as quick to jump off of the bandwagon when something goes awry. Part of what's led to the decline of small guards in the NBA is the failure of a few top draft picks that didn't pan out. Take, for example, Johnny Flynn. Flynn was drafted in 2009, just one selection ahead of one Wardell Steph Curry. And at 5'10", he was the shortest player drafted in that year's entire draft class. Flynn excelled in high school and in his 2 years at Syracuse. But after 4 NBA seasons on 4 different teams, his career quickly flamed out with the Sichuan Blue Whales of the Chinese Basketball Association. Other notable small guards taken in the first round, like Shane Larkin, Trey Burke, and DJ Augustine, all failed to have a significant impact on their teams, and, as a byproduct, led to more and more NBA GMs losing the luster of the small guard, afraid to take a risk on a guy with a high ceiling because of the potential for a low floor. And while there have been a few notable successes of small guards drafted since then, the key misses have only more and more contributed to the lack of small guards being taken and given a chance in the NBA. And that realization, along with this last factor, have made the existence of small guards in the NBA almost extinct, that being international expansion. It's no surprise to most that the number of international prospects and draft picks in the NBA has exploded over the most recent era of hoops. At least 10 international players have been selected in the draft every year since 2000, and at least 2 have gone in the top 10 in each of the previous 11 seasons. The 2024 draft had 10 of the top 30 first-round picks represent non-US nationalities, and the shortest first-rounder was only 6'2". A far cry from that 1996 NBA draft where 12 of the 13 lottery picks were All-American, and the number 1 overall pick came in at 6 foot even. It's safe to say that the game has changed. And while some may argue that this was inevitable, as the game continues to grow and develop and evolve, it's also grown globally and internationally. Only the most unique skill sets and body types and abilities are coming to the forefront from across the entire world. In 1985, there have been more of an opportunity for a 5'9" small guard from the middle of nowhere to grind his way through the ranks and end up on some NBA team that gave him a chance. Back in the days, teams may have been a bit more willing to give some rope to a 5'3" small guard from Baltimore and allow him the opportunity to prove himself on the big stage. But when the entire world is your playground, teams are less likely to take those risks, especially not when there's potentially the next Wembanyama rising through the ranks at 6'7" at only 16 years old. For the small guards, their future may be bleak in the NBA. With now only a few little guys holding down the legacy of the generations that came before them, we may be witnessing the extinction of the small guard in real time. So, enjoy it while we got it. While the NBA game reaches higher and higher new heights, for us small guys, the chances might be fewer and fewer. So, we take what we get, and who knows, maybe in the next generation, things will look a little bit different. Until next time, peace. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate every single viewer, every single subscriber, every single share, like, comment. It really means the world to me. Thank you for your all support. More on the way, more videos coming, new ideas. Let me know what you think. Until next time, thank you.